Welcome. The topic of today's lab is to introduce you in a little bit more detail to the Berg balance scale, one of our very important balance tests that are administered both before the start of any foolproof program and at regular intervals throughout the program. To assist me with this lab today, I'm fortunate enough to have Fritz, a participant in our senior fitness program here at Cal State Fullerton. He's going to be demonstrating for you each of the 14 items on the Berg balance scale and showing you how the tests are performed correctly. This would be a score of 4 on the balance scale. Here you're going to be looking to see what the gold standard of performance is on each balance test. So let's begin with item number 1. In item number 1, what you're going to ask your client to do is to rise from a chair and try not to use their hands. So Fritz, I'd like you to rise from the chair and try not to use your hands. As you can see, that was a very simple exercise for him to perform. He didn't use his hands to push off the hand rails on the side of the chair, nor did you see him pushing off his thighs to assist him getting up. If you do observe those kinds of behaviors, it will be important for you to score your individual lower on that particular test item. Just a quick word on safety. It's very important when you're administering this test to ensure the safety of your client. So I suggest that you conduct this particular test item with the chair firmly against a wall, and in some cases it may be ideal to put it in the corner of a room. On test item number 2 of the Berg balance scale, what you're going to ask your older adult client to do is to stand unsupported for 2 minutes. Again, it is very important to ensure the safety of your participant by positioning them close to a wall or a corner and adopting a position so that you can ensure their safety throughout the course of the test. So Fritz, I'm going to ask you to stand with your feet shoulder width apart, your arms by your sides, and looking straight ahead for me. I'm going to time you standing for 2 minutes. Are you ready to begin?
Yes.
And relax. Thank you very much. As you can see, Fritz had no difficulty at all with the 2 minutes standing in place. If he scores a 4 on this particular test item, then we would skip to item number 4. He would not be required to do the 2 minutes seated in place. In the case of your older adult not being able to stand unsupported for 2 minutes without any manual assist, it will be important to actually conduct test item number 3 on the Berg balance scale. Although you saw Fritz easily stand for 2 minutes unsupported, what I'd like to do is demonstrate for you the position that you would have the client adopt if you did indeed have to do test item number 3. So I'm going to ask Fritz to sit forward on the chair, his feet are flat on the floor, and I'm going to ask him to cross his arms across his chest. I would then start the watch and observe that he's able to sit unsupported without any manual assist for the full 2 minutes in order to score a 4. Again, if he scored a 4 on the test item number 2, the 2 minutes standing in place, he would automatically receive a 4 on test item number 3. On test item number 4, what I'm going to be asking Fritz to do is to actually sit back down on the chair that he rose from on test item number 1. Again, what you're looking to see is that he doesn't use his hands to sit down, nor does he use the backs of his legs against the chair to control his descent. So careful observation of what your client does on this test item will reveal the score that they should receive. Fritz, what I'd like you to do for me is I'd like you to sit back down on the chair and try not to use your hands. Again, you can see that Fritz did not require any use of hands to sit down, nor did he back against the chair and use the backs of his legs to control the descent into the chair. He would therefore score a 4 on test item number 4. On test item number 5, what you're going to require your client to do is to rise from a chair with hand rests and transfer to a chair that does not have any. They'll sit, pause for a moment, and then transfer back to the chair that they started on. Again, you're looking to see that they do not use their hands either to rise from the first chair or to control their descent as they transfer to the second chair and then back again to the first chair. So Fritz, what I'd like you to do for me is I'd like you to stand from the chair that you're sitting on, transfer to the chair to your left, sit for a moment, and then transfer back to the chair that you began on. Again, you can see Fritz had very little difficulty with that transfer task. For the safety of your more unstable clients, however, it's very important that you place the chairs close to a wall and preferably near to a corner. It's also important that you adopt a position close enough to your client that should they start to experience instability as they're transferring, you're able to provide a manual assist. As you can see, we're now starting to encounter items on the Berg balance scale that are getting progressively more difficult. On test item number 6 on the Berg balance scale, once again you're going to have your client standing, unsupported, but this time they're going to be doing it with their eyes closed and for a 10-second period of time. Again, it will be very important to position your client close to a wall or a corner to ensure their safety throughout this particular test item. So Fritz, what I'd like you to do is with your feet shoulder width apart and your arms by your sides, I'd like you to close your eyes when I ask you to and maintain those eyes closed until I ask you to open. Are you ready?
Ready.
And close your eyes. And open. Again, you see that Fritz had very little difficulty on this task. Just a reminder, it's very important to keep looking at the eyes of the client as they're performing the task to ensure that they don't prematurely open them before the 10 seconds has elapsed. In the case of an older adult who is very fearful of falling or is visually dependent, this will be a high anxiety test for them, so be sure to adopt a close supervisory position on this particular test item. On test item number 7, your client is going to still be standing, but now they're going to adopt a reduced base of support by bringing their feet together. In some cases, you'll find that some older adults will find it very difficult to bring their feet completely together. In those situations, encourage them to get them as close as they can and ensure that their heels are actually touching at the back. On this particular test item, Fritz is going to be holding this position for 1 minute with the eyes open. So Fritz, could you bring your feet completely together for me, please, so the front and the heels are touching, and your arms will be by your side. And looking straight ahead, I'm going to ask you just to hold that position for 1 minute. And relax, and you can take your feet back to a shoulder width position. Again, you saw that Fritz had very little difficulty on this task. Do expect, however, with older adults who do have balance problems, that you may see a little additional sway because they're in a reduced base of support. As you have done for all other test items, again, be very sure to place your client close to a wall and/or preferably a corner so that you can ensure their safety throughout the test item. On test item number 8, what you're looking to see your client is able to do is to lean forward as far as they can without moving their feet. In order to conduct this test item, what you'll require is a yardstick that you will affix to the wall at a height that is level with their shoulder. You'll then ask the client to adopt a position where their arm is outstretched, as are their fingers, and simply lean as far forward as they can without moving at the shoulder. It will also be important to remind them not to touch the wall as they're leaning forward. So Fritz, I'd like you to stand with your arm outstretched and your fingers outstretched. And what I'd like you to do now is I'd like you to lean forward as far as you can without moving your feet. And relax and return to your starting position. Fritz scored 13 inches on the ruler, which you'll notice on your Berg balance scale instruction sheet would be associated with a 4-point score on this particular test item. Again, this is an easy item to administer. They are already close to a wall, so they're quite safe, and you're in front of them, so should they lose balance, you're in a good position to manually assist them. On test item number 9, what you're going to be looking to see is that your older adult client can lean down to pick up an object from the floor. In the case of this particular test item, we're using a slipper. So I'm going to place the slipper down on the floor, and I'm going to ask Fritz to lean down and pick up the object and return to a standing position. So would you do that for me, please, Fritz? And again, you saw he had absolutely no difficulty performing that task. Please again, be very concerned about where you position yourself relative to your client so that you can ensure their safety. Some older adult clients may actually experience a little bit of dizziness as they lean down towards the floor, so pay very close attention to their movements. On test item number 10 on the Berg balance scale, what you're going to ask your client to do is to turn to look over their right shoulder at the wall behind them, come back around to the front, pause for a moment, and then turn to look over their left shoulder. Again, you're looking to see that they're symmetrically able to turn to the right as far as they are able to turn to the left. So Fritz, what I'd like you to do is make sure you've got those feet shoulder width apart, arms are by the side, and I'm going to ask you to turn to look over your right shoulder at the wall behind, come back to the front, and then turn to look over your left shoulder and return to the front, whenever you're ready. Very nicely done. You'll notice that he had a very nice symmetrical turning movement both to the right and to the left. In the case of a more unstable older adult again, it is very important that you do position them close to a wall and you do watch to see that they don't lose balance on either the right turn or the left turn during this task. On test item number 11 on the Berg balance scale, you're going to ask your client to turn a full circle, first to the right and then to the left. In some cases, it's very helpful to actually demonstrate this task so they clearly understand what it is they have to do. So I would first demonstrate the task in a time frame that is equal to the 4 seconds or less that's required to score a 4 on this particular test item. So Fritz, what I'd like you to do for me is I'd like you to turn in a full circle, first to your right, come back to the front, and then turn in a full circle to your left, whenever you're ready. And to the left. Although this is a timed test item, it's important that you don't start your watch. It's very easy to count whether they're able to achieve the 4-second turning time simply by saying in your head 1 1000, 2 1000, 3 1000, 4 1000. And you'll notice that Fritz was able to do that task again very easily within that time frame. On test item number 12, you're going to use a 6-inch bench and you're going to look to see if your client is able to complete 8 toe touches alternately with each foot within a 20-second time frame. Again, because this is a more difficult exercise to perform, it's important that you demonstrate it before asking your client to actually perform the test. So Fritz, what I'd like you to do for me on this test is I'd like you to alternately touch the box with each foot until you've done it 8 times total. And whenever you're ready. Very well done. And you can see he was very easily able to complete the full 8 toe touches within the 20-second time frame. Again, even though Fritz is a very stable client, it is important when you're working with older adults with balance problems that you do position the bench close to a wall and in cases if you have one, close to a corner. It is very important that you do adopt a close supervisory position on this particular test item because it is not unusual to see the older adult begin to lose balance laterally as they're performing this task. Again, close supervision is extremely important on this particular test item. Test item number 13 on the Berg balance scale is perhaps the most difficult test item to administer and to actually score. On this test item, what you're requiring your client to do is to stand in a tandem stance for 30 seconds. That is where you put one foot directly in front of the other so that the heel and toe is touching. And again, you're asking your client to hold that position for 30 seconds. If they're unable to do that, however, what you can allow them to do is to try to perform the test again, but this time with one foot forward of the other foot. If they're unsuccessful holding that position, the final position that you would give them an option to try is with the foot just a little bit forward of the other foot. If there is no way at all that your client is even going to be able to come close to assuming a tandem stance, that would be an immediate 0 on the test item. What you're going to see today, however, is the gold standard score of 4 on this particular test item. So Fritz, what I'd like you to do for me is I'd like you to adopt a tandem stance with one foot directly in front of the other so the heels are touching. And I'm going to start timing you now. And relax, and you can take your feet apart. Very well done. As you can see, he maintained a perfect heel-to-toe position for the full 30-second count. On the final test item of the Berg balance scale, what you're going to require your client to do is to stand on one leg for a period of 10 seconds. Because this is an activity that they probably don't do very often, it will be important to allow a few moments prior to administering the test to help them determine which leg is the one they're going to use for this particular test. Again, it will be important when they do this test to watch that they don't put one leg against the other to stabilize themselves. Should they do that, the test would automatically stop. So Fritz, what I'd like you to do for me is I'd like you to raise one foot off the floor, don't allow it to touch the other leg, and hold that position until I ask you to put it back down on the floor. Are you ready? Okay. And you can relax. Very nicely done. So now you have been introduced to the 14 test items associated with the Berg balance scale. It is now very important that you adequately practice administering this test. Use one of your older adult clients in a class that you may already be teaching and ask them if you can practice doing the test with them. When you think you've had adequate practice administering the test, it will be time to do your 2 case studies so that you can learn how to accurately score the Berg balance scale. Remember again that this is the balance test that is most suited for use with a more frail older adult client. These are more likely to be the clients that you would encounter in an assisted living setting where they do need some assistance with activities of daily living. You'll use the Fullerton Advanced Balance Scale when you're working with older adults who are much higher functioning. Thank you for joining us in our practical lab today.